People are justifying to believe in things. You know, we know there are people who believed in something more powerful to be watching over them, controlling them, right? So, in history, as you have rightly studied, that people worshipped the forces of nature at one point.
Of course.
Yeah. Whether it's the thunder, whether it's the sun, whether it's the lightning.
Everything and anything.
Anything, you know, powerful enough. People, you know, started thinking, okay, this is something great. It must have done something to us, controlling, regulating. Right?
Yeah.
But within all of this, there's actually another element which people often miss. I think it's that the idea that it's not an idea actually. It's the feeling within everyone's. This feeling, what we call, is the natural disposition of every human being. There's an Arabic term for it called fitra. But it's the natural disposition that we have this within ourselves, like built in.
The God-shaped hole I was talking
That's
about.
that's what you're saying. That there is something greater than everything that is in charge, that is controlling, regulating, and, you know, dealing with all these things. So there is something out there who is in charge of these things. No one would believe that we came from nothingness. Meaning there was absolutely nothing, and suddenly something came from nothingness, because that's not something you can even...
It's an impossible concept to get your head around.
Because nothing produces nothing, right? Yeah. So no one also thinks that the stars and the nebula, the galaxies, is something that we made. We didn't create them.
No, of course not.
Okay. So we didn't create these things, and no one also believes that we created our own selves.
No.
Did you create Saeed? You didn't create him.
I think he'd disagree. Yeah. Sometimes I think I did,
You didn't create human beings.
Of course not.
So if we didn't create ourselves, if we did not come from nothingness, if we didn't create the heavens and the earth, obviously the question that will come to your mind is there is something, someone that must have originated all of these things. So that is not just a feeling that you have, which we call the, what's the term that you use?
Well, I said God-shaped hole.
God-shaped hole,
and
or the natural disposition, the fitra. It's also something that makes sense intellectually, if you look at it rationally. There has to be something
for sure
that has created all these things, because otherwise you cannot explain how things are. You know, things don't pop into existence from absolute nothing.
But things do evolve. And I'm not talking about evolution per se. I'm just talking about evolve as in like a long, slow change over time.
Things changes. Things changes.
We all know this.
If you
culture changes. You know, I mean, genetically we change.
Changes can happen biologically or socially. For example, if you go to the subcontinent or somewhere in a very warm climate, your skin color would change to become tan,
a bit
darker. It's because you've got something within your body already called melanin, which they switches on and then it produces more to protect your skin actually from sunburn and so on. So you actually
which is why we're the colours that we all are like.
Yeah, so you start adopting, but there's a limit to how much you can adopt.
Yes, I think over time. You see, I think a really hard thing that a lot of people, the majority of people, can't get their head around is time. You see, we have a very short lifespan comparatively, and so say we're like 80, maybe if we're lucky, 70, and yet years. You know, people can't, because they live in that small amount of time. They only think maybe their lifespan, their parents. Maybe their grandparents, if they're lucky to have known them. But they very rarely think further than that. So to actually try to grasp the idea of infinity, I mean, you can't. It's a more or less impossible concept to actually, we can say it. We can get close to sort of grasping it a little bit. But, you know, to actually think of something, as you said, something from nothing, infinity, doesn't start, doesn't stop, it is. So for culture or you know, biologically, you know, for people, human beings, like to be at this small point in that infinity, so over amount of time, and the amount of time we've got is a very long time, anything can happen.
Yeah,
and
how
anything
long
sort
did
of
we
has
have, though?
happened.
How long did we
Oh,
have?
well, this is it. I mean, people, archaeologically speaking, paleontologically speaking, people will say that, you know, like Homo sapiens has been around for about 100,000 years. But I mean, then it's always the, you know, like add or take away or subtract, you know. And yet, what are we, 2017? And then, of course, I mean, this is the human being's real desperate need to box everything. You know, I mean, time. I think that's a very hard thing that
So
people
that's the
can't get their head around.
human beings and how long they've been on this planet for, right? If you talk about the whole world itself, scientists, they go
5.6
for
billion they go for, don't
about
they?
16.7 billion
Is
years.
that
Our Earth may
again,
be around this.
I tell you,
but
we're
the whole-
talking 10 years from now, there'll be another 10 billion
Yeah.
on that, because they love to
So-
not know.
So around this time frame, so compared to infinity, this is nothing. This is just like
For sure,
small
it's a
amount
blink
of
in the
time.
eye. Yeah.
So this small amount of time, we don't expect changes to happen like a banana becomes a human being, for example.
Yes.
To change, to occur from this to that. It's like this. The idea, for example, the evolutionary theories, how they suggest, you know, how matter became alive, and this living
Single-celled
entity
organism
became
onwards.
gradually
Yeah.
evolved and changed to this. I mean, this is a separate discussion altogether in terms of the robustness or the validity of this, but the theories abound in terms of how people may have come by itself. But ultimately, what's linked with this is it is a process that is ungoverned, uncontrolled by any intelligence or consciousness. Okay, that's where the problem is with this theory, because if you leave things on itself, they do not reorganize unless the reorganizing a formula or a function or a property is built in there. If you were to leave your, you know, coins, money, you know, lots of them together, they're not going to form a structure like a structure for a
£20 note.
yeah, or something like that. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The reason it doesn't happen because to make these things happen, you need a conscious architect or
Cause and
designer,
effect.
someone who will this to happen, right? So putting it together, maybe, you know, make it into a structure, and this is it. So if you were to leave, you know, atoms and, you know, all these molecules of matter here and there, and it becomes chemical properties of entities, they were not going to reorganize and then eventually make something that is amazing, like a living cell.
That's right.
Okay? A living
There
cell.
would need to be something exterior other than that.
Yeah. So that's why
To create a change.
That's why
They say every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Something needs to happen.
That is why, would you agree that you have to have a designer involved in all of these processes? There has to be a designer, someone who designed this. So the cell that says, for example, you know, this is food, and this, if you were to take in this food, you have to break it down to usable form into energy, and then you get rid of the waste products. Something that was not designed, it's not going to somehow design a machinery to break down the food, knowing that's food, and use it as energy, and get rid of the waste products. Where is the machinery going to come from in your
You
cell?
see, now I go back to the time thing, you know. So say we're talking about single-celled organisms becoming, you know, like after billions, you know, of years, any sort of life form, you know, just humanity, but, you know, parasites, you know, like you know, diseases, you know, anything on a chemical. I mean, you know, to insects and reptiles and humans. I mean, we're so far down the line of any sort of change, and there being an outward something causing that change. But you see, just a small increase in temperature. So, as we know, stars, they you know, they grow, they get hotter, they get colder, eventually they use up their own nuclear material and they, you know, implode and they become dwarf stars and whatnot. But what I'm saying there is that they cause a heat change. And a heat change, I mean, just as we know on this planet, you know, like, say if it suddenly went 5 degrees hotter all over the planet, there'd be a lot of trouble. You know, the ice caps would melt, being in London, we'd be flooded. So just a little change like that, and that's just sort of relatively overnight or over a month or over a year, but over 1 million years, over 2 million years, then that would change the single-celled organism, amoeba or whatever, to maybe become a multi-celled. That would be the outward changer.
Yeah,
you
I
see.
mean, I can see your line of thinking, but there's a slight problem with this approach, even from the science aspects. They call this process abiogenesis, a term that some people are familiar with, some people are not, from matter becoming life.
Yeah.
And how did it occur? Because if you're something like just matter, how do you then become alive, knowing that you are self-aware, knowing that you need to continue to live, knowing that you need energy to sustain your life?
Yeah.
All of these things, even if you had just chance and this just don't happen, there has to be something that gathers and organizes and formulates in a way that it becomes a functional entity.
Yeah.
This process is very complex, and that's why even to this day, with all these theories abound, no one can say this is how life came from matter, because no one can actually give you
There is no black or white.
scientific, rational, a valid explanation about this. If there were, then we'd all know about it, and we will all say,
Yeah, for
this
sure.
is it. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So it's very complex, this. Time alone cannot make those changes. This is one thing that
You
I
don't
want.
think so?
No,
You
no,
don't?
time alone. So if you've left in a junkyard,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this as an example again. On a junkyard, and all this, material, broken cars and everything like this in a big junkyard, right? Let's say a warehouse.
Yeah.
And if you left this for billions and billions and billions of years, they're not going to self-assemble to make a next generation aeroplane.
They're going to break down into the parts, their chemical parts.
So
right?
what would you think, and why would you think that these parts, when they break down, become rusty and then become, like this, how would they then assemble together and make the most complex equipment of the next generation of an airplane, for example? How precise they are? How would that happen by itself, without anyone organizing it?
Like we were saying, it would need an outward. It would need something else or somebody else. It would need something to do that. Like to even think that it's necessary. I mean, as human
But would
beings,
they self-assemble? That's the question.
No, absolutely not.
Good.
No, of course
So this is my point, and I'm sure you agree with that. Because if there was no organizing power behind any of our universe, whether it's living or material world, we won't be here as we are. Because without this organizing power, organizing force, which we call the creator, the originator, you won't have these things as they are. You know how complex and how designed the living systems are. Human beings or animals or insects, they're very, very, very precise. When you have a cut, you know what happens? How the blood flow starts forming a clot.
It coagulates.
Now clots, because the whole system in place there, come there, form a mesh, and then start stopping this leak. You don't tell them that, it's already there, programs there, it's all programmed.
That's the body's innate motive.
Yeah.
We have two innate motives. One is to protect the self, and one is to protect the species. So after millions of years of any animal evolving over time, then it's going to create ways to save itself, to help itself, to continue its existence.
Matt, the idea of millions of years, how things evolve by itself, is something that we need to start thinking a bit more.
Okay.
If you have, for example, yourself, ourselves, human beings, over millions of years, are we going to start growing wings because we start flapping our hands?
Right.
It's not going to happen, because to do these things, you have to have a program within your, called the DNA, the genes.
Yeah.
The genes, the control, this is like programs within ourselves. It controls how we will have hands or legs or eyes and so on and so forth. So there are programs that are there which is built in. And this program, to think that the program came without a programmer, it's not something very rational.
But that's like then saying that a bird was just one day a bird. That one day it wasn't maybe a mammal or what have you, jumping from tree to tree, and say you have certain mammals that when they jump from one tree they reach out and they have little, not wings, but their arms are joined to their body more. So it just means they can glide to that tree a little bit easier. And it didn't start out like that. It just started out as a mammal, maybe going up and down the tree. But in an X amount of years later on, that gliding will eventually become flying. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll lose that idea of wings and then just become a ground creature. It's like fishes coming in and out of water. You know, I mean, we have plenty of fishes that can swim, and yet, as you know, then they can live amphibian-like on oxygen outside. But eventually, if that water in that pond disappeared over time, then it would be a creature that no longer needed water. So it's
I mean, these evolutionary ideas are there, and then we certainly have creatures who shows they can live on both sides, land and on sea. But it doesn't mean that one actually evolved from the other. This is just another form of a creature.
It's a theory.
Another.
We're all theories, eh?
Yeah. So this idea that things can proceed because of this need, and you change. As I said, if you start flapping your arms, do you really think we're going to start growing our wings? Because to grow wings, you have to have within yourself, inside a program, to make these wings in the next generation. Of course, in your own same generation, if you constantly grow your wings until you die, you're never going to get wings.
No.
So you're talking about this effect. Is it going to pass on to the next generation?
But this is where my idea of time comes from, you see. See, if there was food that was beyond reach and I had to jump up for it every time, not me, not my grandchildren, not my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, but 100,000 years down the line of that food being constantly out of reach, I'll probably find a way to get to it easier. And I'm not flapping your arms, but I think that's the whole thing with human beings, is that we can't, again, grasp infinity. We can't grasp that amount of time. It's just a word. But you know, I mean, examples that I'm trying to put across. Our appendix. Our appendix is there to help break down basic wheats and barleys that are hard for our stomach to cope with. Now, our appendix, we can take it out and get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. But 200, 500, thousands of years ago, we did need it. Our wisdom teeth, we can take out our wisdom teeth and we're fine without it because we are no longer biting nuts off the floor. There are plenty of parts in our body that we no longer need and we can live without because a long time ago, again, the infinity thing, the time thing, very hard to get your head around. I can't do it. But I know that we needed to live in a certain way in the past and we don't now, and thus our body is slowly getting rid of these bits of our bodies.
There's two things I think I need to focus on this, the point that you made. We did not have infinite time for our universe, according to the most prominent scientists. There was no infinite time for our universe. 16.7 billion years is not infinite time. Okay?
No, it's not.
So the idea that we are infinite, I mean, where do you get this concept from, that we are here for infinite?
Well, the thing is, anything goes over a million for me.
Okay.
Let alone billions. I mean, we can't
even
grasp it, can we?
Even with this billion years, I mean, if you have that time frame, you know, it's not enough to make changes as proposed by the evolutionary scientists. The other point about
why do you think that? Why do you think that it's not enough time?
Because the process that we were talking about, these processes are very complex, and without a conscious designer, for them to happen, you know, you have to actually artificially, with some external agents, do these things. It's not going to happen by itself.
But then
if you were to leave it by itself, like for example this junkyard, if you were to leave this junkyard by itself, these broken material pieces from broken cars and so on, leftovers, right? They are never going to reassemble.
No, they're not. No.
To make a next generation automobile of any kind, or a flying machine.
Of course not.
It will never happen.
No.
So this also goes for biological systems. Just because biological systems are alive and they can just replicate and so on, without this program, things won't happen.
You see, this is I mean, I'm always going to be talking about time, always, because everything happens in time. So we'll use the 16.5 billion, but we might as well say, you know, like 8 million, 20 million, 100 million, because they're timescales we can't never get our heads around. And yet the example I gave earlier about the bits of our body, you know, slowly becoming pointless to our existence. Even a little toe, I mean, there are parts of our body that are no longer necessary for us to survive with, and evolutionary, we're changing ourselves.
Just an example, my brother. Just sorry to butt in. But,
No, you're not banging.
for example, even if you've given time, for example, you know the polar bear?
I do.
Just an example, you can carry on. The polar bear is white, correct?
Yes.
It is white more than likely because it lives in a snowy environment. The background is white, and it wants camouflage. No matter of time that a creature, let's say a brown bear, lived there, do you think that even if it was there for 1 million years or 2 million years, what part of... Do you see my point? That without an external force to witness that this creature lives in an environment that is quite white, and it needs its fur to be white to then mold into there and evolve that. How do you understand? How does evolution externally view that and then change that bear into white? Would it not make more sense that there is a creator? I'll let Brother Mansur carry on in a moment. But would it not make sense, as Brother Mansur is stating, that there's an exterior creator watching on? That this creature lives in an environment where it needs this camouflage. Therefore, white is the color of the polar bear. For example, there's hares in the Arctic that are white as well, correct?
Absolutely.
There are foxes in the Arctic that, when it comes to the summer months, they change color and thing. Evolution, as would be even given 1 million years, would adapt.
But that's what. Do you not think then that is? Really, I don't feel... It's strange, isn't it? Because I actually feel that all I could say is exactly what you've said. Because it is the fact that summer has come, the ice has melted, things are no longer white, that the fox then becomes brown to mix in with its background. I mean, that seems to me like the fact that the sun has melted the ice, time, and what's he talking about time? Time has moved and changed the environment, and because of the environment, the animal itself has adapted.
How does the animal change the colour of the hair? How does the animal know how to change?
So this is our innate motives. We have two innate motives: to reproduce and to look after ourselves, to make sure that nothing threatens our life. These two things, they just happen. Anybody tries to attack me, I'll defend myself. And eventually I will want children so that my species will carry on. They're the two things. And changing colour as an animal from white to dark, from summer to winter, is all part of that. Because what it's doing now is innately making sure it will survive, that it won't be attacked by an animal, it will blend in.
That's a very good point. But that's what we're trying to look at, you see. How would that creature, for example me, I'd rather, if I was living in a forest, I'd rather my skin colour be brown and green to mould into the background, but I physically can't change that myself.
Right.
You can give me 1 million years, I can't physically change myself. On the other hand, just showing as an example, if there was an external creator looking on, the external creator can see that the white is needed to blend in, for example, to the snow. And brown is needed in the summer months. Me internally, I can't change that. It would make far more sense if externally that would happen. And just one more example, and I'll let Brother Mansur, forgive me, Brother Mansur, to carry on, is that there's a butterfly, that actually has shapes of, and its actual self-defense is that it has eyes upon it that look like the eyes of an eagle. For example,
Scare me
I'm
off.
sure you've seen it, correct? Now that butterfly is trying to scare the mouse because the mouse's natural enemy is the owl, for example, and the butterfly's wings have the owl's eyes on it. These three things cannot control that. Only an external being would be able to know that the mouse is scared of an owl, so to protect the butterfly, I will put the owl's eyes on the wings to scare. Do you get what I mean?
I understand entirely.
You also know that there's butterflies that look like leaves. You know this, yes?
Yes.
It is strange
Stick
because they
insects and
can't do
whatnot,
that. Because we can't do that. So that's why I would say that...
It's like zebras. Zebras' stripes are there to resemble in black and white, because certain animals see in black and white, like the grass plains and whatnot.
They wouldn't be able to change themselves.
Say if suddenly that butterfly... Say suddenly the eagle became extinct, or whatever these animals are taken from the...
Just 1 minute.
They became extinct, then that butterfly would no longer need to protect itself from that enemy. No doubt it would have other enemies, but over time...
Would the butterfly know that the mouse is scared of an owl?
It wouldn't know, No, it wouldn't. No,
it wouldn't.
But it would. But suddenly there would be no danger where danger was before.
No. I mean, for example, the butterfly, to adapt in the first place, it would have had to guess that this mouse is afraid of owls. So if I put an eye of a predatory bird on my wings, do you see my point?
I do.
Evolution would really not be able to explain that. What would be able to naturally explain that, as Brother Mansur stated about the fitra, is that there is an external being watching us all and knows what to give us to defend us. Anyway, I have to leave.
It sounds
nice
like
meeting you, my friend. Take care. Sorry,
Yeah, just to point you mentioned about like how as time goes, there are parts of our body we can do without them. The thing is, this is once we thought there were many parts of our bodies we didn't need anything. They were not really functional. Used to be called vestigial organs. Probably heard of this term. Appendix being
Like
one of them.
the extra rib
And so on. But actually, you know, as time went, we gradually learned actually these have functions within our body. Even in our DNA, they say they are junk DNAs. They know, you realize actually no, they really have function and purposes within the DNA replication and so on.
Well, they say we only use a small part of our brain, don't they? But
Yeah,
I don't want that part of my
it-
brain to be gone.
Exactly. It's just because we don't know the functions of everything and we say they're useless. That's very not very.
What we do
wise
know
thing to
compared
say.
to what we don't know.
Yeah. So, for example, I mean, to survive, people survive without hands or legs, right? Don't they?
They do, they get
Beings.
by,
It doesn't
that's
mean that you don't need them. It's the way we are, we're designed by a creator to fulfill a particular function. Okay, so we are not given wings because you can live and serve your purpose, the reason why you're created for, without the wings. So we are designed to fulfill the purpose for that particular the way we are created. Okay, so the animals were created and they fulfill their purpose. They have instincts to follow that God, the Creator has given them. The point I understood from you then, the way you look at the world is that there are naturally over time things will adapt and things will change. That's how you look over the reality. The difference between your approach and my approach would be here that these changes can only occur and only come through an external designer who is in charge and in control of these things. The examples I gave you about the junkyard illustrates this point where it will not just happen even enough time where nothing will reassemble. So this was an example from matter. If it was a biological system, again, to move to the level of complexity and organization and design and the harmony that we have within our biological system, without any designer, without a programmer, I mean, I don't see how this can come, even if you left it for millions and billions of years, or even the time that you're thinking. Okay, so that's the difference of our approach, and how we come, different ways of thinking is when we look at ourselves and we say, look, are we just matter in this universe? Particles of dust gathered together, or is there meaning?
Well, we're all made
meaning.
from the same things, aren't we?
But there is something different. As you said, this the fitra or the natural disposition that we have, God-shaped whole, tells us that there is a creator over us and created for a purpose. I mean, if I were to ask you, what's your purpose? You said your purpose was to defend yourself and to
reproduce and
die. But is this the purpose that we are actually designed for? Or could, if you look at
this
it,
is the whole reason why that we're here, aren't we? Talking, because we're there's some part of us in our fitra that really wants to know. Say we could be born on an island, and I might, and I won't grow up as a Buddhist or a Christian or a Muslim, but I will grow up, even on my own, thinking, what's that great big red thing in the sky? Where do children come from? And I will invent a god to explain that, because I would have been born with that fitra inside of me, which is desperate to explain and to answer those really big questions.
So it's not something that you will invent. I mean, you'll rationalize and you come to a conclusion that there has to be a creator for all of these things. So when somebody sees footprints on a desert, they don't just say winds made that imprint on the desert. They don't think that way. Rationally, you would say this clearly looks like a footprint of a human being that went from here
A very,
to
very
there.
long time. So long, in fact, that I can't.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a time where it
Yeah.
was or wasn't. Yeah, it's just. It's.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 So what the Qur'an, which you had a chance to read, the Qur'an tells us, which we believe is from the Creator as a message and a guidance
Yeah.
for all these existential questions
Yeah.
about who we are, what we're doing here, what's going to happen to us, tells us these things in various places. But one important place of these questions, which I've actually gone through to you already, did we come from nothingness?
Yeah.
Did nothingness create us? Did we create the heavens and the earth? Did we create our own selves? Okay. This question is asked, and then it's rhetorically then says, no, but they don't believe. But la yuqinun. This is how the Quran ends. Meaning, if you know that nothingness has created you, and you can understand that, if you know that you haven't created your own selves and you haven't created the heavens and the earth, then you can't have a belief which, and tranquility in your heart, thinking this all came by chance or it was all.
It's not a tranquil thought.
You will only think that what makes sense is there has to be a creator, and this is what the Quran is trying to people to let them think and come to this conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, theories abound about where we come from and what we're doing here. But if you study the Quran actually gives you these directions to actually come to this conclusion that there is a creator, that the Creator has created us for a purpose. So when we die, is that the end of it? The Creator says no, because we are created for a reason, and there will be another creation where the one who fulfilled the purpose they're created for and the one who didn't, both will see the results. So if you have a person who is very bad, in terms of, the person was very, morally, all the bad actions they have done, killing, raping, and corrupting, and, think about this.
Yeah.
Killing hundreds and hundreds of people because you are very rich and powerful, like a Brazilian drug lord, for example, and you live your life like a king and you die like a king, while you have killed.
Well, Stalin said, "Kill one man and it's murder; kill a million and it's history."
So if you have wronged so many souls, so many people, and you die, and that's the end of it, you become dust.
Yeah.
And then a person who lives their life and tries to be good all the time, helps others, is kind, and is looking after the well-being of other human beings, and and they suffer in this course, and they both die. The one who lives like a king but exploited and abused and murdered people, and their results becomes the same. Where is the justice? Where's the justice?
There is none. You see, the only reward that you're ever going to get from being morally good is its own reward. You see, one time, a very long time ago, I saw a chat show. It was Terry Wogan. This is how long ago it was, and I think the Archbishop of Canterbury was on there, and he was talking to someone, and someone who didn't believe in anything, a bit like myself, I suppose. And he said, well, then what stops you from going out and raping and murdering and stealing and taking what you want and doing what you want? And the person who he was talking to, and I can't remember, it's a very long time ago, but he said, well, that's its own reward. The test in life is to be good, knowing that it will never get you anywhere. That's its own reward. So you see, it's better to give than to receive. It's good to be good.
So this comes from your own good self, because you have a noble character, and
I try.
And this is the goodness, the kindness, the generosity, the compassion, and the justice. These noble virtues that you have, because of how you have made yourself away from this corruption, right?
Yeah.
But there are other peoples who are different, and they take the opposite side of the coin, and they become, the most dangerous people on earth.
Absolutely,
they loot and they rob, they kill, they murder, they plunder, and they rape, and the worst of the things that you can imagine. Now, they say it's their choice. There's some people who did their choice.
Yeah.
My question to you is, if you believe in justice,
Yeah.
where is the justice when both comes to the same end on death? The worm comes and eats you, or you become dust, and that's it. Justice is not served.
Yeah, well, I think that the justice is prior to death, because to me that death is the end. So any sort of, I mean, it's such an immovable idea, isn't it? I mean, what's right now, legally, morally, wasn't the case 100 years ago. You know, I mean, certain things were more acceptable then than they are now, and will be so in the future. I mean, when we look at the past, we think, oh, how could they think that? We judge the past with modern eyes, but you can't do that. You see, and that's the same thing with a human being. I think that, say, so two people die, one was good, one was bad, and the only justice, if that person hasn't been taken to task by society as a whole, the only justice they're going to have is that in their lifetime, at 3 o'clock in the morning, no matter who they are, they're going to be thinking about the crap they've done. They will do. Their soul will eat upon them, even if they're real bad.
But this is how you're thinking that, okay, this is how they would feel, but they might actually live like a king and die like a king, and then they get away with it.
Yeah, some people do.
Some people,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
then if those people who do,
politicians, mate.
those people who do, justice is not served.
That's right.
And this is one of the reasons Qur'an highlights this point in saying, look, God is just.
Yeah.
He's not unjust to his creation, and justice will be served, and that will be served in the day of judgment when no one will get away for what they have done. So every atom weight of good that you have done, you will see it, and you will be rewarded for it, and every atom weight of bad, you will see it. So it may be that people, some people may have been forgiven because of their, mistake things that they have done, and they have repented for it, and so on. Others, where just be to justice, they will go and have their justice served in terms of punishment. Yeah. Because justice is quite paramount, and something that you will agree that, okay, it's something inbuilt within our own selves. Even if you were to snatch a toy from a 3-year-old, they will cry and say, no, give it to me back, it's mine. Yeah. No one has taught them justice, but they know something has violated this principle of justice here by snatching something that belongs to them.
Yes.
So even justice, this concept, demands that there has to be a day of judgment. And the Qur'an highlights this point. Look, this life is not the end of everything. You think that people will get away and that people won't get away, because God is the ultimate just, and he will not be unjust to his creation.
But you see, then to me that's like saying, don't in your life now, you don't have to wait for death. Oh, no, that will be the paradise.
No, you don't wait for that. You make your life, this life, a happy
But
life.
as you said, there are some people that don't do that.
Yeah, but I was just illustrating to you the concept of justice, where even the justice demands there's a day of judgment. So, back in the past, people used to say, when we die and become rotten bones and rotten flesh, are we going to resurrect it again? You know what the Quran does?
Yeah.
This is what I think you need to ponder a little bit more. The Quran says, even if we're like this, we will resurrect them, just like the tip of their fingers. Yeah. We'll bring them back again. Or other places, the Quran says, you doubt the resurrection, bringing life again in the hereafter. This is how I created you in the first place. I created you from a sperm drop that changed into this shape and eventually became a human being. Yeah. So if you were to think about both of the examples, just because you become dust and so on, it doesn't mean that you cannot be created. If you have someone who says, look, I created you this way, from this very tiny drop of sperm, and then you successively change to a different form, gradually and gradually, from this, how the different cells, they start multiplying, and then we have different stages of these cells, of the embryo, and eventually became a fetus, and then it became, a child later on. This process, if the Creator describes to you this, saying, look, this is how I've made you. Yeah. Why do you think it's difficult for me to recreate you again when I can make you? I made you once, I can create you again, no problem. So the Creator's given us this process in the Qur'an, and it's amazing when you think about it. Actually, this is a description of how human beings were formed in the womb of their mothers. And we can understand that, okay, this process the Quran described is amazing. I mean, when it's described 1400 years ago, and the amount of knowledge people had then, and the way with this description that it provides, understood by the layperson as well as by the scientist, I mean, it will make you think, okay, I mean, it's clear that one who is describing this process very well knows how human beings are forming within the wombs. Even if you don't have any microscope or anything, I mean, but someone who knows without these tools, and then tells you that this is how you'll be recreated again, then it builds this confidence that yes, it's not going to be difficult for us to be brought back to life again.
Why would you want that?
Because this life is not created forever, and this is the reason why. This
is why we have children, because it's not created forever.
This is the reason why there are things around you we see sometimes not so good. Like you said, the apparent sufferings here and there, because this is not created as the ultimate place of happiness, tranquility, joy and bliss. This is a place where
so wait for the afterlife.
No, put there as a place of test. We will be tested by the loss or some suffering of our lives, of our livestock, of our properties, and so on and so forth, as a test for us, so that we know that okay, we are going to fulfill our purpose. And then in the hereafter, there's another life.
So you see this is a stepping stone.
This is we like travelers. We are travelers, and we are, most of us think wrongly that this is our end goal. No, we're just passing by this life. But there is a life after which is eternal, everlasting. That life, the way which way you go in that life, whether you go to a place of happiness, tranquility, joy and bliss, or a place of torture and suffering, is determined by the life you're living here. So are you fulfilling the purpose is the question that is going to determine. Are you fulfilling the purpose that you're created for? If you are, and you die in that state of fulfilling your purpose, then you've got the next life sorted. But if you don't take care of this life and don't fulfill this purpose that you're created for, then of course the life hereafter, which is the actual eternal life, the real life, you won't be able to go to the right one, the one that you seek, that everyone seeks, happiness and so on. And that's why the Qur'an, I mean, this is why I'm going to direct you to the Qur'an. Throughout the Qur'an directs you like there are two ways to live your life. One way that leads to the life of success in this life and in hereafter, and the other way, the life which is going to have misery and suffering and torture and punishment. And the Creator, the one who sent the book down to us as the revelation, this Qur'an, as our guidance, constantly remind us, okay, don't follow the way that's going to take you to places of misery and suffering. And the things that will take you this way are the things which you know inherently in yourself are wrong anyway. But if you fulfill to do them, if you kill, if you rob, if you cheat, if you lie, if you become an oppressor, all of these things are the ones, the makers of that path of torture and suffering in the hereafter. But if you followed the life of kindness, generosity, compassion, just truthfulness, uprightness, and so on, this is the path that will lead you to some eternal happiness. So it's not something that the Creator is asking you like, you know what, you have to be really bad to go to a good place. No, it's something that you know yourself that this is a good, noble thing that you have to do, and you have to do it. But some people don't do that. They become so stubborn and become so arrogant and saying, I'm not going to do any of these things. I'm going to be my own self. I'm going to...
People get caught up in like their needs. I don't think people can separate their needs from their wants. You know? I mean, like, what do we really need? I mean, like food and water, love, like a bit of shelter.
But do you know how to control that, though? So, you know the difference between...
day-to-day existence in this sort of system that we live in capitalism, where it's as if we've suddenly and definitely, like this century, in the 20th century, people suddenly think you get up, you go to work, you buy twaddle, and that will fulfil you, and that's what they think. And then they spend their lives desperately trying to do that, and then maybe if they're lucky later on they realise that they're actually not happy and they'll choose a different way. But systems of control, whether we call them religion or we call them governments, that they want that, because if you're busy if you're busy out there not particularly thinking, just trying to put a roof over your head and fill your life full of rubbish, then you're not doing what we're doing here, sitting down and actually thinking about what makes you as a happy person, what will fulfil you. I mean, these things, as you said, like they're sort of innate. Like the child, that's had his lollipop stolen. That's he feels suddenly unhappy because he's had his lollipop stolen. He doesn't know what it actually means, but he feels that innately, and possibly the thief does as well. You see, on a real, like a sort of in a simple way, one's had wrong done to him. So on a larger scale, we're constantly living like that, having our lollipops stolen off of us and not even knowing what the import of that lot is. Yeah. And yet to wait to you see, I think that your reward is. But your reward is being good.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way, though. You see,
it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. The Creator has created us and given us a way to live. Yeah. This is called the way of life, and that's why Islam is not just religion. People think religion is just like what you do between you and your Creator. But Islam is a complete way of life, is how even you interact with other human beings, interact with even the animals, interact with your environment.
So that's the great thing with Islam, that it is a way of life rather than a religion.
If you think about this way, and then the Creator has given us this particular way of life where it says, look, yes, you have needs and you have wants, and sometimes you can't balance it. Yeah. And then the Creator gives you formulas and to make sure this is how you can. Yeah. So practical solutions. Because we know that we need to have a balance of all of these things. How do I do that? So we have in one of the months in the calendar called month of Ramadan. I'm sure you've heard of the month of Ramadan where we fast. Of course. Yeah. So what we do in this month, we fast from things which are permissible. Now, what kind of fasting is this? So previously, we could eat food which are pure and nice and better for us, like which God asks us to eat. God only asks us to eat which is pure and clean, so on, not things which is going to be harmful to us. Right. So there is a dietary laws already God has provided for us for our own benefit. Okay. So these we could eat outside the month of Ramadan, for example, when we're not fasting. But in this month, we are now saying we are not going to eat this food. So we are going to control ourselves from this want that we have. Yeah. Need, remember this is need and want, right? Of course, yeah, very important. So we're going to stop this. Yeah. The whole day from sunrise to sunset, I'm not going to do that. So people have a relationship when they're married, for example. You're going to stop that in this month as well, even though you have this need or want. By stopping you from having this, you are going to be in control of your own self. Yeah. Yeah. And then you practice this for the whole of the month, and then after the end of the month, you become a person where you're saying, look, I have learned now self-constraint. I have learned how to, control my ego, control my want, control my need. Yeah. And then throughout your life, you do this. And in fact, this is the month where it's compulsory. And you can do, every week if you want, 1 day or 2 days a week, to do this to actually, and it will help you. And this is why even, a lot of people who are not Muslim, but they also fast because they realize the real benefit from it. Yeah. So when you talk about this idea of need and want, and ideas where people cannot make balance because of their ideologies or because of the control by the political elites, in capitalism or whatever, Islam gives you a particular way of life which is very balanced for your own self and very balanced for the society. So, yes, I want a nice car, I want a nice home, and so on and so forth. But guess what? Islam says you have to also look after your fellow other human beings. You cannot just go fully fed and your neighbor goes starving, hungry. You're not even a believer. Islam tells us, the Prophet told us, the Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you are not a believer. You are not a believer. You are not a believer if you going fully fed and your neighbor is starving to death.
Yeah.
So this is how we balance that. We're going to make sure that yes, we will take care of others where we understand their need, and we understand our greed. We have to put a limit to how much. So it's not a system like with capitalism. You as much as you can in this machinery.
Never be happy.
Or
More.
you have a system where you say no one can have anything. Everything belongs to the state. Remember one time in the communist Russia, Islam says no, you can have this. So if you have land, let's say, and you haven't done anything to it, the Islamic the government will say, look, this is unused.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use it, we'll give it to someone who will use it, rather than just hoarding the land and so on.
Well, that's the terror, isn't it? That there is enough on the planet for everybody to have their needs.
Yes.
You know, not forget their wants, but their needs can be sorted out all over the planet if it isn't for this real, desperate. And I will say capitalism because it seems to be spreading. You know that people. It seems to play on their fears again. You know, their fear of not having a roof over their head, so I'll have a roof over my head with 25 rooms. I'm worried about not having shoes, so I'll buy 85 pairs of Converse, and which goes on with everything, doesn't it? And it's like capitalism plays on people's fears, but will never fill up their stomach. Never do. One of the reasons why we're here is I've travelled very extensively. And I've been all over. I've spent a lot of time in a lot of Islamic countries, and don't like to generalise, but every time I've been in a Muslim country, I've felt, as you know from talking to me, I am an atheist. But when I am in an Islamic country, there is a great well of peace and unity, which impresses me, and that's something that I've always felt when I've been in these situations. Where just because the only other thing I find from travelling the world that has a sort of a wide cover is capitalism, and that scares me because it's so destructive. You know?
So when you compare the systems of ideologies around the world, whether it's capitalism, socialism, Marxism, and all the varieties, and Islam, you will see the practical system that Islam puts in place is something that your heart and your mind will feel comfort and tranquil in, and you will say, makes sense to me, I can understand that, I can appreciate that. So the system of the zakat that we have in Islam, where if you are wealthy and you have surplus wealth, you have to give as a duty, religious obligation, 2.5% of this surplus wealth to the needy.
Yeah.
So the needy could be someone who is very poor, someone doesn't have anything, living on the streets, whatever. Someone who is needy. Okay. Now, if everyone who's wealthy and they provide this and it goes to the government treasury and so on, there's a lot of money that can be then distributed. When this system was implemented properly, there was one point where they couldn't find someone to give this money to. This is how it was, right? Yeah. This is how it was. But unfortunately, people, for the internal influences and external influences, the system was, eventually dismantled. 100 years.
Did people take advantage of it eventually? Like if they had excess money, people.
No. What I'm saying is the system was in place for quite some time and it worked.
Because you don't have mortgages, do you?
No.
That's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
Like,
And then
take advantage
because of internal and external influences, you corrupt the government corrupts you, and then external forces corrupts, and eventually that system dismantled.
Yeah.
This is where all the Muslims are everywhere trying to get back to the system so people can see. And this is how you should live by, as we did before, a system where everyone can live in peace and tranquility and in prosperity.
Yeah.
Because when Islam was implemented initially with all these systems holistically, it rised up to the peak of civilization. At one point I'm sure from the study of our history, Islamic Spain had underground sewage system, overground lighting system.
Seville, Cordoba, they were the first places in the
and
in
where
the world.
in England, people were living in mud, right?
Yeah.
This
And
is
they had
the
they had
difference.
lighting, street lighting.
Exactly. This is the difference we were talking about because of what Islam.
If it wasn't for the
provided
Arab
as a system.
scholars, the world would be completely different.
Yeah, I'm sure you know
from the knowledge of Plato and Aristotle. It only exists because Arab scholars
translated
them, as you know. Yeah.
And they contributed their own. I mean,
That's right,
knowledge Islam never considered to be their own. They assimilated, understood, and then contributed. And that's why, in terms of whether it's astronomy or physics or biology, you see contribution everywhere.
Seriously open-minded, and willing to see how knowledge spanned not just amongst their own people, but in different cultures and through time. Whereas if you look at sort of not particularly early Christianity, but Dark Ages Christianity, it was just slam the door and everything different. Well, which is why we had that period in Europe where things fell apart.
So this system that Islam gave, that it made people, appreciative of other human beings.
Yeah.
So there was place. I'm not sure whether it happens now because the systems of governance have changed because of all these things that are happening. So many different reasons we can go through. But
we're living in an interesting time.
When Islam was implemented, even in Arabian Peninsula, even in Saudi Arabia, not too long ago, where people with their shops, right? Maybe it still happens today. I don't know. I haven't visited quite some time. The prayer, there's fixed times of prayer, just like we prayed earlier on, 5 times a day. So when the call of the prayer is given, they can hear. It's only a few minutes before they join the actual congregational prayer. Yeah. They won't close their shops and lock them. No. They will just go and maybe put a cloth over them on the table that's in the front and then go and leave it unattended. Yeah. Even though it's very expensive items. Yeah. How did they have these things that people won't have actually come and steal and loot and plunder?
Well, you see, that's the great unity of Islam, isn't it?
That
you're all together
understanding.
You're all together praying, and not just praying, but so there is I think from watching how the world has been with what's going on now, I think that unity, togetherness in people's ignorance, that's what scares people, Yeah. It's terrible, isn't it? That you should understand that it's a unity in a good direction. But because people don't understand Islam, if you don't understand something, you become scared of it. And people, when they're
scared,
fear of the unknown. People
they're not willing to know. The problem is, if you were to, open up and say, let me go to a mosque and find out what they really believe. Are they plotting to, overthrow our government, or are they actually worshipping God and saying how we're going to look after the environment and look after the animals?
Yeah, it's a great unity.
Yeah, look after the poor and the needy and the homeless. People don't know. That's the problem. So in Hajj time, when Muslims all over the world go there, they wear, the man, 2 pieces of clothes which are unsewed, top and bottom. Not to differentiate between you are a millionaire and you are a pauper on the street or a poor homeless person, if you were able to make it in these days, in this journey. So everyone is seen the same. So this kind of understanding of brotherhood and the unique solidarity that we are all equal in the sight of God.
Very important.
That shows how Islam totally eliminated the idea of racism and tribalism and the belongingness of other. No, you belong to one group.
That's it. We're all human beings.
All human beings, and you can have only 2 camps. One who is all focused and directed to acknowledging this creator, and the one who don't. So this problem that we see, the sufferings that's happening and so on, they should be all taken care of.
Absolutely, and it's possible. It's so possible. I hear that back in the 60s and 70s, and Malcolm X, he went on Hajj, and prior to that, as you know, he was a Black Power, which any sort of power to one people is racism, but when he went to Hajj, he came back, completely changed his life because he realised that Muslims weren't just the Muslims he was used to; they were human beings and people, and eventually it got him killed. But he opened up his heart. He opened up his heart to that everybody was, you know, under one umbrella, an umbrella of peace.
Yeah.
And you know, that one direction, the same, you know, the same thing.
Yeah. So on an individual level, when we stand up praying, you see our prayer is mainly congregational.
Yeah.
So you stand up next to your brother, who could be the king next to you, or the prime minister, or it could be someone with a cleaner in the streets. And you will see, like in many YouTube videos that I've seen, it's amazing, where the cleaner, who's the most knowledgeable in the Qur'an, and he's leading the whole managers and so on of this organization.
Yeah, yeah.
You will only see that in Islam.
Yes,
Why?
absolutely.
There is no discrimination in the sense that, oh, he's a cleaner, how can he lead the prayer? But yes, he will, and he does.
Yeah.
So when we stand close to each other, these ideas of, you know, I am greater, I am more powerful, I am more stronger, I am more...
I have more money.
Yeah,
this is all of that, isn't it?
dismantles and disappears.
Yeah.
And this is what Islam tries to do on a societal level from the individual, that come close together, then you will see that this differences, you will see it diminishes. In the sight of God, in the sight of the Creator, you're all the same.
Yeah, all the same.
The only difference is the one who's more God conscious, more pious, meaning the one who's doing God's will more. Are you looking after the orphans more? Are you being generous? Are you being more kind? Are you being more helpful? Are you being more truthful? Are you being more just? This is what the difference is between the human being should be in the sight of God.
If you every day you open up your heart, you know, then like those barriers which are all put in there, you know, ridiculously by society, you know, they all fall away.
Yeah.
You know, we all
So
see
now
each other
to
as the same.
link this with this system that we have in Islam,
Yeah.
is a system that you see holistically. It makes sense. It's logical. It's rational. It's reasonable, and you know, things that it says us to do and things it makes us to do. You know, it should make you think. I mean, a system of life like this, telling you that yes, this is all ordained or given by a creator for our own benefit, and created us for a particular reason, to acknowledge God, to thank and to glorify God and should be grateful to Him. In fact, the essence of worship is actually gratitude.
Yeah.
So, to give you this example, to illustrate it more, suppose now we are working after this, we just walk along this road, and then, God forbid, a car came over me and I had an accident, right? And you were the only one. If you took me to the hospital, and I'm unconscious, and then you were with me throughout this, the accident event that I have, and then they needed blood and they didn't have any blood, and you said, okay, check my blood, and it matched, and you gave me blood to save. One of my kidneys was failing, and they said, okay, they matched it and said, okay, you take you gave one of your kidneys to save me, right?
Yeah.
So you gave me blood, you gave me your kidneys, you only met me, you know, maybe, for half an hour or something, but you did this because you are noble in your heart, and only because of that you did this. No, for no reason. Not that, okay, someone's going to pay you or someone, whatever. Now, imagine I wake up a few days later, and I see you sitting next to me, and the nurse tells me, the doctor tells me, this is what happened, and this gentleman has, sacrificed his own kidneys, his blood.
I suddenly feel rather good about myself when I haven't even done it.
And he's done all that. And then my response to you like this. What did you do that? Get lost. or should it be, thank you? What would be my natural response? My natural response should be that I should be grateful to you.
That should be the natural response.
The natural response is one of gratitude.
You would imagine it.
That I should be grateful to you for what you have done. Now think about this, that the Creator who created us, they gave us, not they, we believe in one Creator. Our Creator gave us 2 kidneys, lungs and the heart and the blood system all over. Not only this, the food, the air, to sustain our life. What's our natural response should be?
If you believe that, then it should, of course, be
gratitude.
That's right.
Exactly. So this is what Islam's asking you to, that we should be grateful to our Creator for all of that. And being grateful and following this particular code of life the Creator wants, which is submission and surrender to the will of this Creator, otherwise known as Islam, is fulfilling the purpose of life. And if we do, then you have the hereafter, which awaits us joy and tranquility and bliss and happiness. Now, the question about what is it going to make us convinced that there's a creator, is something that we now have to think about, which we will ponder on. What are the things that will convince, without a shadow of doubt, there's a creator? One thing, I would ask you to ponder is, you cannot have all of these organizations, planetary motions and bodies, stars and so on, and all these laws, just there, just there. How can it be just there with all this precision?
Yeah.
You know how precise they are. You gave some examples about the heat.
Yes.
Yeah. If you were slightly more hot, then life won't exist in this planet.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So all of this is in science. There's a the argument that people use called the fine-tuning argument. The universe is so finely tuned, our universe, that it's like actually finely tuned to sustain life.
Yeah.
And others saying, look, no, it's by chance. There's so many other universes maybe, and this is just one of them. I mean, you don't have any evidence for any other universes. You're just, bringing an excuse to get rid of this finely tuned universe.
Okay.
Yeah? But the fact remains that we are in a universe which seems like engineered precisely for
But I think that this
life.
is the time thing again, like the trying to get your head around the concept of infinity, or even just an extreme. We're talking, as we were earlier, with the 16.5 billion years, a time scale that is completely and fundamentally beyond you. I mean, we're beyond us. It's so the last ice age was 10,000, 12,000 years ago. Where the polar ice caps were a lot bigger than they are now, and moved us all around the planet. The planet is fine-tuned for life at this particular point in time in our solar system, within our galaxy, in the universe. But prior to those ice ages, prior to the dinosaurs, 65 million years, nothing. It's as you know, it's a blink, 65 million years, and yet there was still life. Well, not sort of life we would recognise, dinosaurs and whatnot.
But those
but
lives were their lives were quite, the living creatures were they well adapted to their environment. They were
Absolutely,
living,
yeah. So it was finely tuned for them. But in Earth's early history, there was no life. There was no life. There were volcanoes and slipping continents, and I mean the moon is a part of this planet because we were being bombarded and things were flying off all over the place. And when the sun, as all stars do, get larger and larger and larger until they consume what's in the solar system, again, there will be no life on this planet because we are living, fantastically, at the point of fine-tuning. We could only live at the point of fine-tuning. Before that, there was no life, and after that, there will be no life. But we can't grasp the amount of time. It's a blink in the eye.
Yeah,
but
if you look at it,
the
the things that you say, interestingly, if you study the Qur'an yourself more closely, you will see the author of the Qur'an, who we believe to be the creator, describes these processes, how the creator created this universe and this earth, and how it was initially. So the creator created this earth and then formed it and molded it and gave it Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people know the double sapien.
Yeah, so we did not come from the hominids ancestors.
Okay.
I mean, some people believe we came from the apes, of course science doesn't say that. So we have common ancestors between the apes.
You've got the Neanderthal, then you've got the Homo robustus and Heidelbergensis and Australopithecine, Australopithecus. Goes on and on, doesn't it?
So what we say is this: God created life, and the life with all the different creation within this, and human being was placed a point within this time frame quite later.
Yeah.
So there was already trees and fruits and animals and lots of other creatures, right? And human being was placed. What the evolutionary theory simply says, that this creation developed and evolved from simple cellular organism to multicellular complex organisms by themselves, and human beings came to one of these lines. So they have this tree of life and paleontology and others. Now, Islam doesn't say that, this is the process. It says, God is the one who created all of this creation.
Yeah.
So there's always God being the agent of and the ultimate originator of all the creation. Okay. Evolutionary theory simply says there isn't an agent. It's not a conscious process. It just happened by time. But what the concept that I would like you to think more is this concept of time, where time itself, even if you were to give enough time, in your understanding, it not just drive those changes. To give you a change about a conscious process where you need organization, imagine you have, do you cook?
I do, yes.
Good.
You've done my own since I was very young.
Yeah. So you have a kitchen, okay? Imagine now your kitchen is, you've got the cooker there, and you've got the sink, and you've got the freezer, and you've got the cupboards where there's tea and sugar. Yeah, you've got cups, and you've got spoon, and you've got the lighter, or automatically, if you cook, automatically lights and fires, right?
You've got a rather full kitchen now.
Yeah. You've got this kitchen. If you gave billions of years, and the kitchen is all by itself, would you ever see, after billions and billions of years, that the fridge door opens, the milk bottle comes by itself, and then it pours on the kettle, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then the fire lights, and then it starts, water's boiling, the water comes from the sink, and then you've got the cupboard door opens, and then the tea bags, they just come, and then they come into the cup. The water then goes into your cup, the milk, if you have milk, and the sugar, 2 spoons. How many sugars do you take?
I'll just take the one if you're making
one
if
and then you can see the stirring, and then you have a good cup of tea.
Yeah.
Now,
you're making me thirsty.
This cup of tea, with these processes I've described, do you think if you have given billions and billions of years and no agent like yourself or a robot or your friends, right, making this, would it ever produce itself?
It would more likely happen in the first few minutes than the billions of years.
Yeah, it's not
going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So that's just so, even if you gave enough time, when we are talking about a complex organization like this, this is just making tea. It's not even complex like human beings, and it's all these cells, how they come together, how cells come together to make tissues, and tissues come together make organs. They seem to know. When these cells start dividing, these cells differentiate, and they became eventually cells that will eventually become tissues of the heart, tissues of your lungs or the liver and so on. They're different.
Yeah, for sure.
These cells, which are in your heart or in your lungs, they're different. They come together. They know where to go. They go to this place, and they organize together, and then form this tissue, and form this organ which functions and does its job. That's the level of complexity we're talking about compared to just a cup of tea.
Yeah.
If we cannot envisage, if we cannot imagine that a cup of tea can be produced like this over billions of years by itself, then how can we even postulate the idea that, living systems can also happen the same? We have to be consistent.
Yeah.
Just because something is living, it doesn't mean that, it will change by itself. Because at one point, there was no nervous system, there was no brains to say, I know. Imagine the first cell, or not for this, you've got this matter, which is just chemicals, right?
Yeah.
Molecules and
Elements,
so on, elements. When it became the starting ways, like they started forming amino acids, and amino acids forming peptides, and peptides forming polypeptides, and then start replicating. They will say, but now you've got the building blocks of your life. These things to then replicate, it needs a program, and it needs to sustain itself by taking in energy.
Yeah.
How does it know? It doesn't know because it doesn't have any consciousness.
This is the time thing again,
But even with time, if you don't have,
it only needs to happen once in those billions.
Think
of
about this.
Of years.
Think about if you don't have something that has any brains. See, if you make a simple robot, something like this, and you have no instructions, right? This has no instructions whatsoever. You've just assembled it and left it. Now, does it know that it needs to plug itself to get the power to make it walk, for example, in its or run on its wheel? It doesn't know. No. So if you have a machinery that you assembled, it's got wheels, right?
Yeah.
Now it doesn't have any programs whatsoever. You haven't given any programs because you need programs for it to work, right? So it's there. is it going to now say, okay, I've got this wire, I need to plug it into this electric socket to make myself, it's not going, it's never going to happen.
No, of course not. No.
So if you ponder on this and you realize just because you have enough time, things will not assemble itself.
But I going back, taking it back to the single-celled organisms, the beginning of life, and stars, light, stars and heat, and planets that have been bombarded by comets. So water, So you've got like water, electricity, light, and for billions of years, as you say, there's no plan. Nothing happens. This stuff just is, which is amazing in itself, isn't there? Because we live and we die. So how do we think of something that doesn't have a beginning and an end? We can't do that. I can't do that. But you see that a planet, a star, starts off at a certain size from exploding and imploding and nothing happening, as you say, for the majority of time that we can comprehend or we've been told about or we read about or we hear about, nothing happened. But then as a star gets to a certain size, giving off a certain amount of heat and certain waters in a certain amount of depth, all it needs in that time, those trillions and billions and zillions of years that we can't, they're just words to us, is for this one spark, just one. There's no plan. It's just because, chance. Because in those trillions of years, percentages dictate that there will be a time, point, in space and time where chance will occur. Chance did occur. And this is the result. The thing for me with what we're talking about here, life, isn't that like life sort of sprung up, isn't that any of the multitudes of different sorts of existence. What throws me is that all the millions of different types of life forms here that we have on this planet, we're the only ones that do this. They're like crocodiles or reptiles that have been around for 1 million years longer than us. Why don't they think? I mean, a lot of animals comprehend their own existence. You can put a monkey in front of the mirror and it will know that it's itself. But it won't turn around to you and say, hey, that's me. But why not? Why are animals that have been here for a lot longer than us, why don't they, talk? Why don't they comprehend stuff? Why, because they've had more time to doing it. See now I'm arguing with myself against there being, or rather with there being a God, you see? Because this is something I have no answer to. I don't know why. That makes it seem like there is a God, because we do think.
So if you were to ponder on this line and realise, that this cannot be a result of a chance, because when we say chance, you know how many chances you have to get this life going from matter? Because the first spark that produced these amino acids, we know in our labs that these amino acids in this primordial soup, they call it, very unstable. They will be very unstable. They will not form your proteins. That's why even today you will realize that we are not able to make, in our latest technological advancements, a living cell. We can't replicate what happened.
No, we can't.
And so you would need chance after chance after chance after chance to make this, and that's why we've also
had it.
We've had
chance after chance after chance.
But what we're saying is this idea is about chance and chance. It goes astronomically so impossible, saying this is no less than a miracle. Miracle after miracle after miracle. And guess what? From the scientific aspect, we're saying, yes, I accept this is a miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. Yet, no, it wasn't God. It wasn't the creator. You see, all of it, in the equation, it tells you that you need the creator to make all of this, because that's, makes sense.
That's why most people on this planet do believe. Yeah, I'm in a minority, a real minority.
Yeah, but if you think about the belief, by examining the data objectively, you are concluding with this conviction, and that yes, rationally it makes sense that there is a creator. There is this creator who caused all of these things ultimately. Yeah. Because you understand the issues of cause and effect. This universe that came, there has to be a cause for our universe. Because the universe began to exist. And it couldn't just begin by itself. and from well, it was nothing. So there was a cause ultimately. So if you ponder more on the Qur'an, it will just give you this understanding and this intellectual conviction for you that yes, this is how this world is. This is how I am. God created it. The reason why often we don't want to believe in God is not because we don't understand that there is a God who's done that, the creator who's brought about this universe.
Yeah.
It's because the implication of believing in a creator. It's because of the implication once someone says, yes, I know there's a creator, that's not the end of it because, okay, there is a creator.
Yeah.
All right, why did the creator create me?
Yeah.
Must be a reason.
Well, if people aren't having those sort of thoughts anyway, then
yeah.
there's no
But you
problem.
see, so some people do not want to be under any influence of the creator. They want to live their life and say, no one should control me. They want to be. Remember, at one point, religion was controlling in some form or another in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or non-religious ideas were controlling people through their ideologies of Marxism and so on.
Yeah, for sure.
So now has come a time where people want to be free from the controls, and they say, okay, no, I'm not going to believe in any state ideologies, or I'm not believing in any religion.
Yeah.
But you have to be balanced and say, look,
If they don't have any wider range of control, then if anything, they should have their own state of control. But it seems now with a capitalist materialist sort of outlook, they don't want those form of controls because then that leaves them open to doing exactly the hell what they want, which is a downward spiral to everybody's unhappiness.
Yeah. Do you know that we are programmed to die in ourselves, in our body?
Yeah, unfortunately. I'm feeling my back going a bit now, because I'm programmed to...
Do you want to come to the sides on the knee?
No, I'm only kidding.
So there is a program already. I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting to think that, okay, I mean, if it was just chance, why is this program so engineered where, there will be these human beings and then, everyone has to come to an end.
Yeah.
So,
but that's our innate motive again.
Yeah. So when you say innate motive,
reproduce.
this is what you're trying to now understand while you're there. But this program, where does it come from? You didn't design this program yourself. I didn't design my program and say, okay, look, I'm going to live certain life. It's already built in the cells. At one point, that's it. You will have to come to an end. So you will have to die. It doesn't matter how much money you spend through medicines and anti-aging, we will age and we will die. We don't live for more than 200 years, do we?
I don't think that. You see, some people talk about like the living forever or going to an afterlife or whatnot. But the idea of being me for forever is terrifying. I have a very big family, and we're blessed that we live into our late 80s and 90s, and we're all very close, and we talk. And they reach a point, a lot of my family, when they're towards the end, where they're happy to go on. They're happy to die. And I understand that. I think being alive forever, again, that word that we can't get our heads around, is terrifying. I wouldn't want it.
Do you,
Why would you
do you
want
love
it?
someone?
Family.
Good.
I'm not.
Would you not want to love them forever and forever, always? Or do you want to just say, I'm going to love them only for...
to the extent of my life.
You see, but you will see, this is something, again, inbuilt within ourselves, where this love that we have, we say we want to remain, we want to love someone forever.
Yeah.
The peace, we want to have peace forever.
Yeah.
The tranquility and the happiness, we want to last forever.
Yeah.
People,
Yes.
they long for the lasting.
They do.
Now, this innate feeling is not artificial, because, yes, there will be a life where you live forever, and if you are going to this, heaven that the Creator created for us, a place of eternal joy and happiness, bliss and tranquility and peace, where it will not be like, that's it. There will be always rejuvenating newness, new feelings. It will be like, constantly where something that you feel new and you love to remain. So the idea that some people say like, isn't it going to be boring? It's never going to be boring. Why? So the happiness that you'll have is not going to just diminish.
Yeah.
It will be in increasing levels of...
Well, you'd have to be a different person then.
There will
to feel like that all the time.
Yes,
You'd have to be like you were 18 forever.
No, you're right. In the Islamic teaching, that we will be created afresh, new, and you won't be created like someone very old and so on. I think
they won't be walking
they
around
will
in
be-
their 20s.
Yeah, so they will be, you know, in their youth and so
Yeah.
on, right? So you'll have a different body, and the happiness and joy that you'll have is something that will be, you know, say something like you're eating something. So we don't believe that it will be like you'll be like spirits. You will enjoy physical enjoyment, just like we enjoy food here.
Yeah.
Over there, you'll have food, but you won't feel any bad effects from it. Okay, so every time you eat fruits, you think, oh, it's something like I tasted it before, but it's not the same thing. So always something will be different. So there's never a chance where you'll feel like boring, same taste, never.
Yeah.
So that's why the eternity in Islamic concept of paradise is something that is always going to be, you know,
You see, that sort of thing is
longed for.
That's all comparatives. That, you know, I mean, the best meal I've ever had is after I didn't eat for 2 days and I've been working really hard and travelling a lot. Big Saeed knows I'm a big traveller, and I had a roast chicken. Nothing, you know, amazing. No great big restaurant or whatever. And it's the best meal I've ever had. I still think about it, and I've just brought it up. That's how amazing it. Because if you're, it's a comparison. It's between. You can only really appreciate having something if you've gone through a period or you've lived without. You know, if you constantly have something, you don't even think about it. You've got it. You've always had it.
So in this life, this is how it works correctly. You make comparisons, and based on that, you say, this feels really happy because the amount of pain that you had before. And this is one of the reasons why in this life there's this duality in place, comparative duality. If you didn't know what pain was, you would not appreciate what happiness is, what, you know, peace and tranquility is.
Yeah, for sure.
So the idea that people are saying, why is there any suffering? There are sufferings for, you know, different reasons, but sufferings are also there for you to appreciate the joy and the happiness.
Yeah.
But in heaven, there will be no suffering whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because you've already understood that, okay, happiness is what I want, you know, joy is what I want, and you will have that without anything. So when we eat something, as I said, you won't feel any bad effects or anything like that at all. So if you were to think from this point of view, the Islamic system is not only sensible, it's actually quite rational, you know, what God provides. And this is what should be one of your reasons to think even more. I mean, how does that all holistically come together? They all make sense. I mean, this is one of the things, you know, I would like you to go and ponder more. Why does Islam, in all its levels, in multiple layers, it makes sense in terms of the way it describes the origin of this universe, that there is a creator, to the reasons of our existence, to what happens life after death, and the life that awaits us, whether it's a life of happiness or life of punishment. It makes sense, and this is one of the reasons why.
Well, historically, Muhammad, you know, between Mecca and Medina, I mean, he's had such not just a massive influence, but a very fast influence. You know, within the generation, within his lifetime, you know, like the entire area, you know, was with him, because you would imagine that people, he filled that God-sized hole within them, you know, the fitra. He showed them it, and they jumped on it because it satisfied them. You know, there was obviously something missing, you know, prior to that.
Sure.
Whereas with you know, other things, you can see the evolution of Christianity from Jesus and you know, down to, you know, Constantine in Byzantine. It took hundreds of years, you know, and it was really over another way of just controlling people. You know? So I would say, from the limited bits that I know, it seems that Islam, during the lifetime of Muhammad, he really did feel a spiritual need within his people.
Yeah. So when you were to assess a religion, and once you have this concept that there has to be a creator, this is what you have to work on yourself, right? How do you you know, convince yourself that there's a creator of this universe? Then the next question would be, what is the nature of this creator? Okay. So I'm going to leave you with these thoughts and ponders about, because you are arguing yourself, saying looks like there is a creator from looking at all these issues.
I'm not saying
So,
I know
so,
everything.
so if there is a creator, what will be the concept of this creator? Is this creator many or just one? Is this creator someone who has families and brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, and whatever? Different religions has this concept.
Yeah, the Greek style. Right?
Islam says very clearly, no, there is only one creator who is absolute.
Monotheism.
Absolute. And being absolute, being one, is the one who is independent. And being one and being absolute and being independent means there is no other, and there is no lineage to this creature, and there's no offspring to this creature, there's no fathers or mothers or children and daughters and so on. And being one and unique and absolute and being totally independent, there's nothing like this creator. And this is what the Qur'an describes about him. There is unlike anything. The creator is totally unique, unlike anything. So we don't imagine the creator to be, like what other people imagine. There is no likeness. Whatever you imagine is not the creator. You can never imagine the creator. Okay? So other religions, even though they're supposed to have believed in the same creator, but they conceptualize this creator in a different way, saying, oh, we can't focus on this creator, so let me just erect an idol and focus on myself. That was a wrong approach, because the creator never looks like an idol. Well, like an elephant, or a monkey, or a human being. This is like such a low estimation. Or a man. Such a low estimation of people in imagination. So, if you consider the concept of God, the concept of the creator in the Qur'an, this is again where you will see that your heart and your mind will be in tune with. Just like you'll be in tune with the Islamic systems of life, whether how to behave with other human beings, or how to behave on a societal level, and the concept of the creator, you will see that you're in tuned. So the next level of your pondering should be on this. Okay, fine. What sort of evidence do I have that this is indeed from the creator? Okay. So the Quran that we believe in itself is an evidence that this is a guidance from the creator. It gives us falsification tests. That anyone can claim they're the prophet of God, or messenger of God. Anyone can claim this is a book from God, right? Anyway, and people have done that in various times. What the Quran does, it gives us certain ways to disprove it, what we call falsification test. If you can disprove it, then you know it's not from God. It cannot be. For give an example, if this book contained mistakes and discrepancies and inconsistencies, contradictions, it cannot be from God, because God is all knowledgeable.
For sure,
This God cannot say one thing here and one thing there and make a mistake like, oh, in the past, you know what, this is what happened, and this wasn't the case. So this is man-made, or someone from someone's ignorance. So the Quran says, had this book been from any other than God, describing all of these things, describing about past, about the present and in the future, about economics, about sociology, anthropology, about paleontology, about cosmology, botany, describing all of these things, if it wasn't from God, then you will certainly find many contradictions in there. So what people have done over the ages to try to, move along with this argument, say, okay, fine, let's see if I can find something, actually a contradiction. And those who really pondered deep and so on, and then they couldn't. And this is what the Quran challenges people to go and challenge yourself with this Quranic challenge that the Quran says. If it wasn't from God, then certainly you'll find contradictions. But if you don't, then ask yourself, how is this Quran able to describe all of these things, in this unmistaken, perfect accuracy? It just demonstrates that this is coming from an author who is knowledgeable, an author who is not even terrestrial, because it just talks about as if like you are describing things on the earth, or describing space and constellations and how they formed and so on. It's not someone like a person on a desert, or a scientist in Greek and Roman times. It is someone who knows all of this knowledge. That's one argument the Quran provides. For you to ponder and say, if I can see that this Quran stands up to this test, then I have to seriously think about this authorship, as it claims it's from God. Secondly, the Quran, which is one of the primary arguments of the Quran, it says, if this book was not from God, no, it's not like this. If you don't think this is what God has revealed to his prophet, his slave, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then produce a chapter like it.
Okay.
if you are truthful, if your doubt is true. And if you cannot do it yourself, then seek your helpers and supporters besides God. So the Qur'an is telling us, to those who disbelieve that this is a revelation from this creator, to match like the Qur'an.
Yeah.
So it's called the challenge of inimitability. So can you actually imitate the Qur'an? So the Qur'an came in a form that was totally unique to the Arabic literature. Totally unique. The Arabs were masters in their language. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they knew, was not a lettered person, not an educated person. He was unlettered. He didn't know how to read and write.
Yeah.
And yet, in his 40th year, he's coming up with this literature. To them, it's like, what is this? How can, we cannot even imitate it. So the Quran says, if you, make a book like it, or 10 chapters like it, 10 surah, or even one chapter like it, if your doubt is true, it's not from God. So over the hundreds and 1,400 years of Islamic history, the people, they tried, some of them, and some of them even before trying they gave up, to take up this challenge, because what is it that makes people unable to match? Because of this unique nature of the Quran has been delivered. So there are some objective studies that have been done to show how you can objectively bring something like it, and you won't be able to, because you not going to make sense, because the form it comes in, even though the way it's delivered, it makes perfect sense and it's very eloquent, but if you were to use it now, the same kind of rhetorical features, it would not make sense, it would be laughable. Okay, so this is how the Quran has used the language itself to prove the case. Why? Because primarily the Arabs at that time, they were masters of Arabic language. They were excelling in poetry so much, they used to hang their poems on the wall of the Kaaba. We call them mu'allaqat. And some of them have been translated. They're very, very beautiful.
I have one called the Black Marigolds. That's lovely, actually.
Yeah. So what is it that Quran is unique about it that you cannot imitate? The beauty, the eloquence, or is it the meaning, or is it the structure, the arrangement of the words and letters within the sentences called the ayah? This is what is unique about the Quran. And the Quran challenged the Arabs, and the Arabs failed. This is the reality. The Arabs failed, being the masters of their language. They failed, and instead they opted to wage war against them.
Yes.
It was easy for them to destroy Islam by making one chapter like the Quran, and that was the end of Islam. But they could not do that. So and still today, people cannot do that. The imitations that are there in the internet, for example, if you look at it there, it's not even like it. They don't even understand it. They should even ask, what's the nature of the challenge? And you can clearly see, even though you're not a master or a scholar, you can see the faults that that's not the construction of the expression of the Quran like this. So very futile attempts there. People think they have done it. But the scholars will clearly admit that you cannot. So what is it that's preventing? The Quran is using this to prove itself. That this is from a divine source, from the Creator. So I've given you two examples where the Quran gives falsification tests to prove that this is not from a human being. It cannot be from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or from his community, or from anyone in the whole planet or anywhere else that you can think of to bring something like it. And the information that it brings about the past civilization that people didn't know anything about it. How did the Quran know? How does the Quran correct the historical mistakes of the past, historical mistakes of Aristotle, not replicate the mistakes?
Because that stone hadn't been interpreted for another 1,000.
You would expect, if this was a common knowledge from the biblical literature, just to copy the same mistakes, right? But it didn't do that. Instead, it gave you the accurate picture. This is just one example out of many. Just to illustrate that the Quran is not just a book where it's been conveyed by plagiarizing and copying the historical events and so on in the past, but it gives you information from a source who knows the real history. And when it talks about something of the future, the Quran one point says about the two major powers at that time, the Byzantine and the Persians, which were not controlling the Arab peninsula at that time, right?
They weren't,
right. But they were the two major powers, they're fighting each other and so on. But the Quran says, you know what, Romans have been defeated in a nearby land, but they will soon be victorious in a period of between 3 and 9 years. Why did the Prophet have to even mention this? And stake his prophethood if he was an imposter?
Yeah.
Would you do that? Because what if now it was turned
For sure, yeah. You'd
incorrect?
You'd keep
That's
that
it.
out, wouldn't you?
No, if it turned out to be wrong, that's it. People will laugh at you like,
That's right,
oh yeah, I knew, yeah, you just like another false prophet.
Yeah.
And it came true. When he has no need for this. So that shows this knowledge of the future is coming from someone who's all knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the things that I would ask you to reflect when you read the Qur'an and ask yourself, what is the source of this knowledge that's coming
But
from
what part
the Qur'an?
of the Quran is the Egyptian historical context with the Moses in?
Throughout. Stories are throughout the different chapters. So what the Qur'an does,
Yeah.
it gives us narratives of these events for our learning point,
Yeah.
what they have done and how can we learn from there, learn from the teachings of the Prophet then, or the behavior of the people that we shouldn't emulate, the wrong behaviors.
Yeah.
So always there's a teaching element involved. So sometimes within the narrations of a particular theme, it may be very abbreviated. Others, it may be very detailed. So you'll find these events are throughout the Quran. So there are very good indices within certain Qurans where you can say, story of Pharaohs and Moses and this chapter, this surah, this, and you can go and read and you can.
I'd be interested in. Yeah, definitely be interested in reading that.
There are some books written on these issues as well by I think Nwai Fatuhi and others, if I remember correctly, on these issues where they've gone into detail. Various books written. People use a thematic commentaries, like let's talk about the pharaohs and ancient Egypt, and they write a book, so you have all of it all together. But if you were to read the Quran, you can just open up anywhere and you will see that it does give you a guidance in every page. It just reminds you of your reality in every page. It reminds you of God in every page. You can do this experiment yourself.
I have done. Yes, when I Said he said I should open up the Quran after trying to centralise myself spiritually, which I did. It took a while. But I opened up a page and I got on a specific surah, and it was talking about Allah's light. Like within a. In fact, I've got it. Shall I read it, Si?
Yeah.
Because this is the whole reason why I'm here, isn't it? Really.
Right.
Because I've been trying to get him for a long time. This experiment that he did, he was amazed.
Yeah, it was just. Because afterwards, I'd opened it again. Yeah, percentages. I tried to, like you're saying, I was testing it. Yeah, I was testing myself. I was opening up and thinking, if there were anything else that would sound similar.
Relevant to the
what we were talking about.
It didn't work. Just that one time, yeah.
So it was like Surah 24, and Nur? Is that?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Surah of light.
35. Yeah, totally. Allah is the light. See, straight away, I was thinking, anyway, like I said, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The example of his light is like a niche within which is a lamp. The lamp is within glass, the glass as if it were a pearly white star lit from the oil of a blessed olive tree. Neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would almost glow even if untouched by fire. Light upon light, Allah guides to his light whom he wills, and Allah presents examples for his people, and Allah is knowing of all things. You see, like that part there where Allah guides to his light whom he wills. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I did, and I read the surahs prior and after, and yet, to me, which you were saying this was going to happen, and I was thinking, okay. Yeah. But so it was a surprise, and is the reason why I'm here like that.
So other thing I would say is listen to the Quran, because the Quran is a recital. Listen to the Quran in Arabic even though you don't understand it. You will see that it will resonate within yourself. This is one of the amazing features of the Quran. Even if you don't know the language, because its Quran came in this Arabic language, which is the speech of the Creator, it will resonate within your hearts and you will feel this. This is why you have to experience. So through the internet, you can download, in a very high quality audios of the Quran, or you can see videos. Listen to it. Okay. Just listen, quietly, and then reflect. Some of them have translation going at the same time, and see how I'm using the word resonate. It will resonate within your heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when the Arabs heard the Quran for the first time, which was their own language, they didn't need to believe in anything else about science and anything. They knew this was nothing but a revelation from the Creator.
Yeah.
It is not an ordinary human speech. This is the effect that it had on them.
Okay.
Yeah. It totally mesmerized the Arabs.
Well, it wouldn't have spread so fast, over such an area, like just at the time of Muhammad's life, let alone, in the present, So it's definitely something. The God-sized hole, the fitra, I mean, this is we talk about, me and Sayyid talk about because he's interested and he can't grasp atheism, and I can sort of understand why, because it is such an empty thing. It is such a terrifying. It's not easy, and I don't like it, because of that feature within me doesn't like it. But it's something I've been battling for a long time, since that day in the park.
Yeah. So I mean, read more of the Qur'an and you will see. The more and more we confront with reality, then we realize there is no such thing as chance. Because if you flip a coin, right, we say chance is 50-50 head or tail, don't we?
We do say that, yes.
We say that, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is there's no such thing as that. If I knew exactly the shape of the coin, the weight of the coin, the height, the ground, what metal it is metal, is it wood, is it carpet, and so on, the humidity, the temperature, the wind speed, and the height. If I could know all of these factors, one can say with 100% certainty it's going to be head or tail or on the sides. It's because
you could mathematically work it out, like
you can with 100% certainty. It's because we don't know the answers to all the factors, because so many factors involved.
That's why we use words like luck.
Yes,
there's no such thing as luck.
Exactly. So this idea of luck and chance doesn't exist. It's just our ignorance or not having the knowledge of the factors involved. We say it's chance.
For sure.
So likewise, this universe and it's all this organization and harmony and precision and design. It's our reluctance to admit that there is a designer, because with the acceptance of a designer comes consequences. Oh, remember what I said? If there's a designer, who is this designer? Why did the designer design me, creator? That's what people don't want to reflect on and so on, because they don't want to be in this control.
People hate admitting to themselves that they're ignorant as well. It's a hard thing to say, isn't it? That, I mean, most people can admit they don't know everything, but it's very hard to admit we know nothing. What was it? Plato says, the first step to wisdom is admitting that you know nothing. So I'll just say that, so I say I'm wise.
So the Qur'an says in quite a few places that are those who know and who don't know equal? How do you judge? How do you sense? How do you even think? Of course not. The one who sees and one who doesn't see, they're not equal. So the Qur'an puts a lot of emphasis in knowledge. When it comes to the believing a creator, the Qur'an says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. Know with certainty. Not just believe, know with certainty there is no one worthy of worship except the God alone. So
have that sort
a
of faith.
lot of emphasis on this, that know and read. Interestingly, the first revelation that came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not believe, it was iqra, means read, recite, proclaim. So you can see from the very, and then within this few passages, read in the name of your Lord who created. I'll show you the chapter. You will see the importance of knowledge the creator of this cosmos has put forth from the very beginning of Revelation. So this is called Surah Al-Alaq. Just read first 5 verses, 5 ayat that was revealed very first time to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ.
Okay. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. So it's just like knowledge, isn't it? Like
exactly. Read, learn, recite, and God taught us. So this is why the Quran, when people read the Quran, this belief that one has is not a blind faith.
No,
it's a conscious decision that one makes based on their knowledge. That's what makes life becomes fulfilling. That yes, you are content. That you know what you believe. You worship who you know, rather than you're living around not knowing what's going to happen to you and so on.
And you've had it put on you.
Yeah.
So if you're searching and you are, you know, like to that point that you're actually looking, then that must be so attractive. Like, you know, that it is like it's opening your eyes. There's a lot of things trying to shut your eyes to only themselves or a particular way.
One of these chapters called chapter Surah Ar-Rahman, one who's most merciful.
Yeah.
It starts with most merciful, taught the Qur'an, created man and taught him eloquence, this bayan, this expression.
Yeah.
So God's reminding that He is merciful and He's taught from His mercy. He created man and gave them the knowledge of speech and eloquence and expression.
Yeah.
So it's always throughout the Islamic teaching where its importance is emphasized of learning. So our Prophet ﷺ said, you know, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it is an obligation on every single person, male or female, to learn and acquire knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you think about this one, people who are making up ideologies in religion, making up systems of control.
That's it.
They want their people to be less educated.
Of course they do.
They want people to be ignorant.
That's it. They don't get anywhere by educating the masses.
So that you can control them. Yeah. If you make them learn and find out, then they are not going to listen to you anymore, right?
No, no.
Qur'an came on the first day saying, no, you have to know, you have to learn.
Yeah.
So it clearly shows you the differences of approach. I mean, if it was not from God.
No, if it was by a political man.
Yeah, you would expect them to have a different way of saying
this. Just listen to me.
That's right. I mean, out of interest, I'm making some comparisons to different religions, naming them or without, just to show the comparisons, to appreciate more. There is a particular religion where it says in one of this book called MansurAhmed. Okay, so I've given you the name of the book, but I haven't identified what religion for you. It says if okay, actually you probably know when I mentioned this, there are different levels of human beings in their status in this religion that I'm talking about.
Okay.
If the lower caste,
okay, gotcha.
Now you got me now. Yeah. I couldn't use the word afterwards. If they were to listen to the revelation, the Veda, put hot oil in their ears so that they listen to it anymore. If they were to read or recite this revelation called the Veda, the work, the guidance of God, cut their tongue off.
Really? Okay,
so now you realize
it's the complete, absolute, to the
totally
furthest degree, the opposite of those first five we were reading.
So it shows you how, you know, it is designed, this particular way of ideology, where it's controlled by a group of elites, where they will be the ones who are the guardians of their book, and tell you, you do this, you do that, and this is what you're supposed to do, and you shouldn't be reading and learning, because if they did, then they will find out the truth, right?
Absolutely. Well, it's like trying to, and I won't try and hide. It's like the King James Bible written in English for the first time, but for hundreds of years it had been in Latin only. So people couldn't
on the hands
understand
of the
it.
people.
That's right, yeah.
But from day one, Qur'an was in the hearts of the people. From day one. And that's why, as you rightly pointed out, it transpired and totally transmuted the whole of society, Arabian society, from someone who was burying their daughters alive, to be the most noble people on earth at that time, golden civilization. Whether in morality, in ethics, in their social structure, in architecture, in the engineering, in their science, people went there to learn. We talked about evolution a bit. Charles Darwin, he had to learn Arabic under his professor Samuel Lee.
Okay.
Because knowledge was there in Arabic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
The Lord of Bath sent his son and went to the Islamic Cordova or
I've been to Cordova, middle of Spain.
And when they came back, if I'm not mistaken, in my reading of this events, and then established Cambridge University.
Okay.
Yeah. So Oxford, I mean, these are histories of going in line with the Islamic civilization. That's how Renaissance happened. The Enlightenment happened because of the the encounter that they had with the Muslims. No wonder at one point suddenly calculus was discovered, but suddenly by 2 or 3 different individuals from different places exactly the same time.
Yeah, because they'd opened up Arabic.
Because books were looted by in the period of Islamic history where libraries were burned and destroyed.
Arabic mathematicians at the time were and centuries beyond what was going on.
And their books were then some of them survived here and there, and then end up, and then they started saying it's fine. Yeah. So what it signifies that Islam from the very beginning is a way of life to enlighten you, to ennoble you, to make you a better person, to make you a person who is, coming away from the shackles of slavery to the systems, to ultimately submission to the Creator.
Yes.
Yeah. By doing that, you become a good person, not to yourself, but to whole of humanity and all the other creatures. So you don't become someone who will oppress the animals, even the animals, or even the plants. You look after the environment, you look after other people, and look after yourself.
Know your place in the world,
And this is essentially what Islam will inculcate within human beings. The Prophet ﷺ said to us that he was raised to perfect the nobility of character. So we don't believe that we are all deprived, we are all lost in that sense. No, we have noble character.
Yes, absolutely.
Prophet came to ennoble and uplift and make our better.
And isn't that what we all want?
Yes.
To be
so I will
better.
leave you all these thoughts for you to think and reflect, and perhaps we talk again and you talk to other people
I'd love to. It's
more
been
knowledge.
really nice talking to you.
I don't know anything at all. I mean, I've just shared you something that I'm sharing with you, but please explore Islam, and then explore about these existential questions about reality. I mean, who you are and what's going to happen to you. Is it really life, death, the end of life, or not? The origin of the cosmos. I mean, nothingness couldn't have created it, and it couldn't have created itself. So there has to be a cause. Thinking about all of this, you make the decision yourself.
Absolutely.
No one should, somehow bully you into,
no one ever has
accepting
done.
anything. And then once you do that, you will see, the tranquility that you get. And no wonder when someone becomes a Muslim and they believe their way of life is Islam, this surrender and the submission, it also brings them peace.
For sure.
One of the meaning people say Islam is peace, because this is the peace that you attain from this surrender to your Creator, knowing that's it. There's no other way of life which is accurate or correct or the truth apart from this way of life, that yes, I am a creation of a Creator who is one and only, and this is who I should serve. Okay?
Well,
so it's been nice talking to you.
Pascal's wager, quickly. Do you know Pascal's wager?
You can talk about that another time.
We'll talk another time. We've been sitting here for ages.
It's just a question.
That's right. We can talk. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
It's lovely talking to you. Absolutely.
Have to talk again. And
We
next
will,
week
we
we will
will
have
do.
something to eat.